All right, thank you to everyone for the flexibility to do this at noon instead of 5 o'clock. I think it helps everybody out to avoid the parade and let those of us who want to go to be able to go. All right, so we have an agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. We have the minutes from last month.
Move to approve.
Here we go.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Staff report?
Our January meeting falls on January 1st, so typically we would move that to the following Thursday, either at noon or at 5. So we need to change it today. So are people gonna be in town on January 4th? You know, etc. Would you guys rather do it at noon or at 5?
I can't do it at noon.
Okay, so that's one vote for 5.
Yep.
5 is good.
On the 4th?
5's good.
5 is good.
Okay, so we will have our January meeting on January 4th at 5 p.m. That's really good as well because Lori Beth will be able to.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So we had no administrative approvals this month, so we'll jump right in. Case number 441. This was tabled from November, so request by W.G. Yates to install signage for property located at 400 South Lamar.
Okay, the applicant has returned to the commission with 2 new signage concepts in the same location as we discussed last month. The first concept features a sign in the same design as previously proposed, the Yates logo and blue lettering with gooseneck lighting. And the second concept features the Yates logo and black lettering backlit with halo illumination, which we have a few signs like that on the square, which the applicant included photos of in their application. They did indicate to staff that the second option is preferred, but they will be willing to install either option that they've provided today. You know, where external lighting is addressed in the guidelines, they do recommend gooseneck lighting, and backlit lighting is not a recommended sign type, which is how I think we ended up here today. The existing building is listed as non-contributing. Additionally, the placement of the sign won't cover or overlap any architectural details important to the character of the building. And so staff finds that either option would be appropriate. We did recommend approval of the previous sign concept, so we're consistent there. The proposed gooseneck lighting on concept 1 is as recommended by the design guidelines, while the halo lighting on option 2 is a little bit of a softer way to backlight the sign compared to what was proposed last month and what we see on the Raymond James sign directly below this proposed sign. So the applicant is here. I believe if you guys have any questions for them. If you guys have questions about the staff report, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, open it up to the commission for questions, comments.
This is just a comment. Since I was concerned about visibility last time, I drove that stretch on Lamar, and really, unless you get to a particular portion of Lamar and are intentionally looking that way, you cannot see it from Lamar. And it's a beautiful view from Harrison and back of City Road Street and stuff like that. But as far as the visibility from something that folks would see on a regular basis, it's simply not there. Gooseneck is more in keeping with what we've approved in the past. If they don't have any real burning desire either way, that's something I could certainly vote for.
Yep. And applicants, feel free to come on up if you have anything you want to say. I guess, are there other comments from the commission?
It made a difference to me just to see option number 2 changed from blue to black. Somehow seemed less of an interruption in your view of the historic square.
Yeah, the Yates blue is, of course, we'd prefer it, but if we want to match the other colors on the building, like particularly the Raymond James sign that's on the same side, that's if the commission's good with that, we're good with that too. So.
And the Raymond James would be similar to what your second design is, the way it's lit. Mm-hmm. The Raymond James is similar to that.
It's actually on our original design. It's on the first option here. One more. See, there's the Raymond James sign there. That was our original submission, just for reference.
Yeah, it's a halo lighting.
That was a halo, the second.
Yeah, that's a little soft.
So it's similar to the Raymond James.
And on the front of the building, the soap company, those signs are the same halo lighting on those.
Right, and we included some photos just for reference.
That's why I prefer the second one, just because of consistency a little bit. To have the same.
I think I probably also prefer the second, and that is because of consistency, and color is making a difference to me here somehow, and just being more, again, probably consistent, even though we're allowed to have color, of course.
Is the second design y'all's preferred option here?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't really see any need to change the color. As for what Andy said, that we were not gonna see it from Lamar, and it's your logo.
Right, yeah, we had made a slide at the very front just to kind of demonstrate that visibility. And try to, I think that was kind of a concern last time, was again, how it was viewed, but we try to make it clear, it is pretty hard to see the sign, especially a lot of the traffic around us, it's one-way roads, and you'd have to kind of break your neck to actually see the sign.
And so, just to be clear, the option 2, it's not translucent lettering.
Correct.
Okay, so it's solid lettering, it's just gonna, because
It's 2-inch aluminum channel letters.
the original scheme, it was translucent lettering.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, my preference would still be gooseneck lighting, whether it's black or blue is immaterial to me, and not the halo lighting.
Colors is not an issue with me, even on
Yeah.
design too.
It's the glowing letters that I was objecting to, and I would prefer the gooseneck lighting to be in keeping with what the guidelines say. But that's my preference. Am I gonna vote against a motion that is for option 2? Probably not, but I would personally prefer the gooseneck lighting.
I think either of these is approvable. If this building had nothing but gooseneck lighting on it, then I would say absolutely not to anything else. But given that all that's already been approved on this building, I don't think it's appropriate for us to stick to, yeah, you gotta put gooseneck. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it's fair to y'all, quite frankly.
I feel if that's what y'all prefer, I would like to make a motion to approve the second design.
Okay, we have a motion, second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Oh, and do we
Appreciate
need to
y'all
decide on
coming back.
color?
Yes,
Or
sir.
they can do whatever color they want?
I think,
Just let them go.
well, hey, real quick, just to clarify, the motion was for the second option, which includes it being black. I think that the commission has said color is immaterial to us. Do we need to clarify that motion and vote?
Yeah, yes.
All right, just to approve the
You
second.
mean you would be okay with them doing the halo lighting with the Yates blue?
Yes, I think that's the
So
commission's
that's
feeling.
that's the same as what they came
Andy, is
with
that-
last month.
Andy, is that in keeping with your vote as well?
Yeah, why don't you just, whoever made the motion, just accept a friendly amendment to your motion. And then let's just revote. Who made the motion?
I did.
Just
I make the
re-
motion to approve design 2 with blue lettering.
Don't just say color, but we could put hot pink.
No, I can say blue. Let's go
We'll
with
let
the
you know
blue.
about it if you do.
Blue or black?
No maroon.
No,
No.
Okay, great. And it'll be in the minutes too, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
do we need to vote on that though?
yeah.
so there's a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all.
Good catch, Amanda. All right, case number 442, requested by Mills & Mills Architects to renovate existing structure for F&B property located at 101 Courthouse Square.
Okay, so this application, like you said, is for 101 Courthouse Square, which currently houses First National Bank. This location has long served as a bank, but was built in 1997, is therefore listed as non-contributing in the historic resources inventory. So this was a really big application, but there are lots of pieces on it that were what we consider in kind that don't even require admin approval. It's all painting of wood, trim, things like that, just maintenance. There are 3 parts that we did want the commission to consider. That is the replacement of the railing. That'll actually bring it up to International Building Code, rather. The replacement of the shingled roof with a standing seam metal roof. And the third thing, was replacing the gutter system. So from the report, currently the middle railing on the wraparound second floor balcony doesn't meet International Building Code. The application proposes to install steel railing, wow, it's early for me, that will stand 3 foot 6 inches tall, and that'll bring it to code. It's currently 30 inches, so it needs that extra height to bring it up to code. The proposed railing will be simple in design, composed of steel 2-inch square hand and bottom rails and 1-inch square spindles. All the railing will be painted dark grayish black, and the design guidelines do not offer any information on balcony railing, but the muted color and simple design make it appropriate for the district. So the second part is the overhanging balcony roof. The applicant would like to replace the existing shingled overhanging balcony roof with a standing seam metal roof in dark burnished slate color. Though metal roofs are not commonly found in Mississippi until after the Civil War, the guidelines state that they were more common in commercial uses rather than houses. There are several examples already on the square of standing seam metal roofs. They're already in the historic district. Additionally, the application of the metal aids in differentiating this newer non-contributing construction from historic buildings on the square. But there's several examples already on the square. Finally, the applicant requests approval for installation of an updated gutter and downspout system that already exists there. If approved, the new system will follow the same footprint of what currently exists. The applicant would also like approval to install new fascia to cover the gutters and the downspouts at the roof line. The applicant has also proposed to wrap existing metal columns in painted hardy to further hide these downspouts. They'll be installed inside of them, so you won't even be able to see them. The design guidelines recognize the importance of properly functioning gutter systems to protect properties, and focuses mainly on the maintenance of those systems. There's not really much more information except for that. If approved, the resulting effect of the new fascias and wrap columns will be an almost unseen gutter system. So the staff recommends approval of the application if the commission finds that the metal roof is appropriate. Okay? And the architect, William Mills, is here also if you have any questions for him.
Okay, Mr. Mills, if you want to come on up, there may be some questions for you.
Can somebody take it back to the picture, present day picture of the building?
Yes.
Thank you. There you go. Is that? That's the rendering, right?
Yeah, that's the proposed,
Well, this is at the time of the survey, so last year.
that's existing.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that roof?
Yes.
The balcony roof? I'm trying to get a visual.
It's just a asphalt strip.
That's fine, okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Kate. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Any discussion among commissioners or questions for the applicant?
So the gutter system, it'll empty out from the bottom.
It will.
Of the columns. Is there
Correct.
maybe one on the corner there at the intersection?
Hang on just a second. Let me see.
Because it looks like from the design, it just drops straight down. What's that gonna
it
do
does.
in terms of water spreading out?
Well,
But it's angled.
we can angle it too if we need to. We were just bringing it straight down so it wouldn't be exposed for damage.
I get it, and I generally like the concept, but it seems like that has a potential to put a bunch of water in the crosswalk, right?
Oh, you mean on the end? Let me see if that one is receiving, yeah, that one is,
Because it dips down like right beside that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say that it would put more or less, but we could divert that one if you want us to, angle it, or,
I mean, I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's gonna put more or less water, you know, because the same amount of water right now is coming down right there, so.
I mean, I will say I generally like the idea, but that would be one concern. I think. In the event that does happen, is there some way to come back and remedy it?
Sure. Yeah, I would think that we could,
Of course there is, but I'm talking about like from a making or remedy it situation.
right. I mean, we can turn it to where it'll go down the street rather than accidentally ending up in the crosswalk. But it all does slope pretty well down to the north. I know that sounds odd, down to the north, but that's the direction, so.
Well, I mean, I guess we could, you know, I don't think it needs to even be part of a motion. We can just impress upon staff that when permits are pulled, that's paid attention to. Because it's really kind of a city maintenance issue, not so much a historic issue, yeah.
It is a pretty good slope there, away from
yeah,
that side,
it's gonna run downhill.
crosswalk, but we can talk to Jonathan and building about when you're.
And we'll look at that too, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the bank wants to be causing anybody to slip and fall there.
Right.
No,
I got a good view of that. I can throw a business card off my rail and hit anybody too.
When it gets cold out.
Is there a downspout there now in that location?
yes,
So
ma'am.
it shouldn't be any different.
Right.
that's what I was saying. And actually, it would disperse more equally all directions rather than straight out.
We as a commission do not review colors, however, we often ask about them. So the burnished slate, to be clear, it's about the color of
It's
the current shingles, maybe a little
It's
warmer. in
actually a
tone.
little darker.
Yeah, darker and
Right.
a little warmer.
There's this, yeah, these are all colors.
There's the color.
Colors on everything else, you know. I mean, I think that they look good. The railing would be the only one that really changes from what it is now.
It'll be a little darker. But it fits in with a lot of the ones around the square right now, so.
Any other questions or comments?
I move we approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
And generally, to you and the building owner, I want to say I applaud the moves you're making to hide the gutter, hide the downspouts. I think it's extra steps that are, I think, nice to see.
Agreed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Looks good.
All right, case number 443, our big one.
Yes, the big one today. We heard this case regarding 412 South 14th Street on a complimentary basis at last month's meeting. The applicant returns for review and approval by the commission of both the demolition of the existing non-contributing structures on the site and to build a new 3-story mixed-use building. The site, located at the corner of Tyler and South 14th Street, is zoned Historic Urban Center, which allows for no more than 3 stories. The project is currently under site plan review with the city, so that means with engineering, fire, building, as well as under your review. According to the city's municipal code, the commission must consider and vote on the proposed demolitions. If those demolitions are approved, the commission will consider and vote on the plans for new construction. So you guys are familiar with this process, but Stuart will take you through the demolition vote, and then you'll consider the new construction. The current site consists of a vacant lot with 2 warehouse storage buildings, including a Quonset hut, which are not listed in our historic resources inventory survey, along with a small commercial building, which is, and we included that survey in your packet. It's described as a circa 1970 1-story 3-bay no style commercial building. It's listed as non-contributing. The section 5427 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance requires that the commission should consider the following criteria: the individual, architectural, cultural, and/or historical significance of the resource. The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to the architectural character of the district. The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to neighboring property values, and the commission shall consider the difficulty or impossibility of reproducing such a resource because of its texture, design, material, or detail. So then moving into the new construction, according to the design guidelines, development within Oxford's historic districts must be sensitive to issues of compatibility and to relationships between old and new structures. This does not mean duplicating exactly existing buildings, but it does mean that a new building should be of its time while not copying precisely the styles of the past. I included several portions from the new construction design guidelines for you guys. The proposed project is going to be a 40-unit mixed-use structure. The ground floor will contain retail and parking. So when considering new construction, the commission always considers setback and lot coverage, orientation, scale, proportion, rhythm, massing, and height, as well as materials and color, roof shape, details, and ornamentation. And staff finds that this building meets the criteria for new construction. We did include a condition, which is pretty standard with new construction. We do this in the residential and commercial districts. The final review of the window and door schedule is approved, reviewed by staff to ensure that the windows meet the recommendations of the design guidelines and that they're true or simulated divided light, because we've had some problems with that in the past with grill between glass windows. So that's minor.
Is that the only hook y'all want?
That's the only condition. And I will point out, I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but they are under site plan review, and, you know, occasionally with fire and sometimes building code requirements, the footprint could change a tiny bit, and anything that staff finds to be a major change is going to come back to the commission, but small details probably will not. So. And,
All right.
I don't know if we want Tyler to present now.
Yeah, I was going to ask real quick. So we have a crowd. Are there people in the crowd that wish to speak for or against? Or is it just general interest? Not to speak yet. I just want to know if there are that want to come up to speak. Yep, okay. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the applicant if you want to do another presentation, or if you feel like you've given your presentation in your complimentary and the application speaks for itself. Then I will have those who want to speak come up and then give you a chance to speak after, and then commission will have our discussion. Everybody good with that? So does the applicant want to speak first?
There are a number of questions you asked last time. I have answers for them. I can give them now, or I can wait until after more questions come. It doesn't matter.
Why don't you come on up and do that first then?
Okay. Part of that is samples.
All right. Should we? Do you think we should go through the demolition? No, let's do the first and then go through.
This is how we
Yeah.
normally do it, yeah.
Do it all in one package and do it separately.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to see you all again. I first wanted to just take one quick second to commend you for having the meeting. You changed the time because of the special thing tonight, the parade. Other towns that I've presented in, when there's something special, they just cancel the meeting. I'm very appreciative that you just changed the time.
You're welcome.
So thank you. Okay, so I won't run through everything because you've seen this before, but I did want to address a few things. The main principle that I heard from you all before was the notion of scale. What the drawings that I showed didn't really show this in context with the rest of the town, so I have that as well. And then a point of clarification, because I had made a comment before when I was looking at architectural survey of the town, that the town was mostly a simple box architecture with these porches coming off of it, which is sort of what we're following. Point of clarification, that is intended to describe the square, certainly not the entire town. I do know that there are wonderful houses in the residential districts that are nothing like boxes. So I'm really talking about the commercial buildings, and I thought that might need to be clarified. Okay, if you can go ahead and go to, we all know where the site is, existing. And I talked about, yes, so you can just pause there. That's some of the details and what's here in the town. Railings are another issue. You would ask questions about the railings, so I have some explanation about the new railing that we're proposing and why I think it's appropriate. Go ahead. So this is the overall site plan, putting in context with the general neighborhood, showing about 2 blocks in either direction, giving you a general sense of scale. And you know that, as I've described it before, along Tyler, so along our main long street frontage, we're splitting the building in half. There's a notch in the middle that leads you into this inner courtyard. And part of that is to get the massing from Tyler, which is the long street, very similar to some of the other massing that you see. This sort of the square just there to the north, which I believe is, and I always get these, High Cotton and the Van Buren are those 2 buildings. And you can see that those squares there are relatively the same size as the types of squares that we're talking about in this. And that all just comes from your street blocks and how big they are, so it's normal that it would be about that. But this gives you a good idea of the context of size compared to some others in site plan. Here's a massing model that we put together, which I think is something you'd ask for in terms of how does this feel, not just in site plan, but in height as well. It's a little bit hard to tell because of the perspective here, but if you, right next to the building is a new building that was built, and this is where, Heather, help me, what's the name of that new building? That's the Harrison, yeah. The Harrison is right across Tyler, and I don't know if you can tell here, but it's substantially taller than what we're talking about. I have an elevation on the street that'll depict that a little bit more later.
But substantially how much taller?
Well, we're 3 stories and topped out at 40 feet, and it is an additional 2 floors above that. Just in height. Part of that is the topography, where it sits on the hill.
Bigger grade.
But it's very tall in the back there, which is why I was initially surprised when I heard that the zoning is only 3 stories, because it appears much more. This gives you just some good context in terms of the scale of those other buildings and the scale of the building we're talking about. While in site plan, it might look larger because it's 2 of those boxes joined together. In height, it's actually smaller than a lot of these surrounding buildings. You can go ahead. There, this is coming in on the actual floor plan and how that scale is further broken up by these. I talked about the notion of courtyards. The whole thing is based on the big courtyard in the middle. Each unit has a small courtyard, which is its outdoor terrace, to further break down that mass. And that smaller courtyard of the terrace will be important when we talk about the railings, because that's kind of a tradition of much of the architecture of really of the whole South, because of this notion of getting out of hot houses before air conditioning, being able to spend time on the porch, and having that railing provide you a little bit of privacy while you're out there. You're outside, but yet you still feel like you're in your house because you have that decorative privacy. Okay, we can go ahead here. These are just more of the floor plans. Oh, I will touch back, if you go back one, you made mention of we're in site plan review and the fire department. We've been talking with all the different departments and different criteria. The fire department is one of the ones that has some comments, and one of their main issues has to do with the width of the streets, which is not, I find a little bit odd because we can't widen all the streets in the whole town, but in terms of in front of our building on Tyler, we are talking about ways to widen that street so the fire truck can at least sit in front of the building. Where it goes beyond there is anybody's guess, but in front of the building along Tyler, we can do that with some manipulation of sidewalks and curbs. So while the building might change, you mentioned that there could be little changes. The widening of the street won't change the building at all. It'll just change the topography of the sidewalk. There is another open-ended question about a fire lane in the back. That could create a small notch in the back of the building, but it wouldn't be anything that, it just, along Tyler, the building would look shorter. Is pretty much all. So that, all the details, the general massing would remain the same. Okay, go ahead. This is just a reminder of the exterior elevation view, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe the materials now, if this is the appropriate time to talk about materials. So I mentioned that we are taking inspiration from the building that's just across 14th that sits up on the hill there by the water tower, and it was a public works building built in I guess the 1930s or after the Depression, and it has this beautiful kind of yellow and orange mottled stone on it, and that we really felt that color was a good, appropriate color. You see it actually picked up in several of the buildings around in this district in the brick, and some of them have stone down on the bottom, at least it appears in that kind of yellowish color. So I brought samples of the brick. We have found a particular brick, this one right here, which is a really, Hebron is one of the real good quality brick makers. And it's got this wonderful kind of modeling of 3 different colors of brick in it. And these 3 we find really kind of represent the color palette of the stone in that building. It's also a smooth brick as opposed to a textured, which gets it a little bit more akin to stone. And we think that this is a good kind of use of that. Then we take the darker one. This is actually one of the bricks in the blend. Take the darker one and pull it out and use that for all the accents. There's some banding around the windows that you see up there, which means that they'll go together and not be garish and stick out, but it'll still provide that little bit of detailing. So that's our brick. I heard you say several times that you don't govern colors, so I'm glad to hear that, because I can't tell you exactly what the green color is. The reason why I can't tell you is because we don't know which window manufacturer we're using yet. We typically use Anderson, although we might use Pella or Marvin, one of those 3. But each of them have their own kind of set colors of green. These are all from
Hey Tyler, I'm gonna move this so
Yeah.
people online can hear you. Yeah, sorry, it just occurred to me. Yeah, there you go.
Great, thank you. So this gives you just an idea of color palette. These are all from Pella. These are their standard greens. We use one of these, probably this this olivey one. That's called deep olive, which is akin to what you see in the picture there. Once the window manufacturer is selected and the green of their window, because we don't want to do custom window colors, it can get expensive. Then all the rest of the colors, the paint colors and all those trims, this is just a kind of general palette, will be pulled from that to match.
So the general takeaway on that is an olive, forest green kind of palette.
A dark muted olive,
Okay.
something along the lines of that kind of general, because it goes really well with the brick. It's all part of that, and following the theme of the magnolia, which is the name of the building. So we're picking up on the trees. The railing has that pattern in it, which is the pattern of the magnolia flower. I'll talk about that here a little bit more in a minute. But the other material you'd ask about is the canopy down there underneath where the commercial is. So again, we don't know exactly which manufacturer, but these are 3 that we commonly use, and they have some standard kind of bronzy, copperish looking colors. I personally like this one the best because it's got a little bit of direction in it. It's got a little sheen to it. So as long as it's in the realm of the right price, then that would be the one I would pick. So that gives you an idea. It's something that's metallic and mimics copper, not aged copper though. Okay. All right, I'll leave those there for a second. Yeah. So we'll just run through these. We'll get to the elevations. Okay, here's the elevation then, which gives you a really good indication of the height differences. This is the top one is the elevation if you're standing at 14th Street looking north. So on your left, the building to the left is Nuke's. That's their, kind of the back of their, or the front of their restaurant facing 14th. On the right, which is actually not on the corner, but deep down the block, so in perspective, this is far away, but that is the Harrison. And in terms of, now I didn't put a tape measure out there and stretch it from the roof to the ground, but that's our best approximation by using scale and counting bricks on it and everything like that. It does sit up on the hill. What you don't see is that the elevation of what would be the street that's north of 14th that goes into the square. Yeah, what's the street they're on?
14th goes north and south.
Oh, sorry, then to the west of 14th, the next one over. That's the one you're seeing at the end of that, in the gap between them, and it sits way up on a hill. So the building doesn't look that tall when you're up on that street, this from the back side. The bottom picture then is the elevation along Tyler, and you can see the hill as it slopes up then towards Lamar. To the left, what looks like a short building is actually the retaining wall that's there is it the powerhouse?
Jumps up to the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what you see, that height there on the left. And then just to the far right is the building that's right on Lamar that we kind of face up to the back of, which were pretty much the same height as there in the end.
Did you include in your photographs, I'm looking here, and some have peeked over my shoulder to look at it, so it might be helpful, an image of looking up at the Harrison. I see one on page 20 at the lower right. Just because if we're looking at it here, I want everybody to see what we were just looking at. Just for the scale to see what, yeah.
Oh, that series of pictures that's on the page. I think you.
Did I pass it?
Yes, it's at the beginning. Right there.
There you go, lower right, yeah. No, up to the right is one in particular we were looking at. Now, yeah, there you go. Right column, bottom.
Yeah, it's at far right, bottom one. There it is, yes.
There we go.
So that's that back wall. In the foreground is the back of Nuke's, the little building that they use for storage. That's on our property. That's what will be coming down. Across the street, across Tyler, is the open outdoor bar, is the best way I can describe it, whatever it is. And then that's the Harrison up there.
Okay. Thank you.
That back wall, which, as you can see, if you count those floors, that's 3 stories on top of a base of another additional 2 in terms of the bottom. So it's 5 stories on that back side, which is why it looks so much taller. But it's just because it's built into the ground, I guess.
Okay, I'm sorry I sidetracked you.
No, you're good. You're making my point that our building is not very tall in comparison. Okay. This had to do with the colors. We already talked through all this. There's a picture. And okay, so this is the metal screen. If you can go forward a little bit in terms of the porch railing, I took some photos last time I left. You can just advance to the next. Oh, they didn't get in there. Shoot.
Do you have them in the other packet?
I took photos of railings around town, but it's okay. I don't need to see them because I'm sure you know them by heart. If right out here in front of this building, in front of the courthouse, in fact, we can probably see it out the window. If you're out in the front door and you turn to the right, there's a building that says Duval's at the top, and it has this white kind of decorative railing on the second floor. Now, a lot of people would call that a wrought iron railing. Basically, that's sort of the terminology of it. That's sort of the tradition that you see around here. There's a lot of metal work. Has to do with anti-fire from, I believe you guys had a big fire in the 1860s that changes a lot of the architectural detailing of the town. So we call it wrought iron, but it's interesting because it's actually not wrought iron. And that's to my point of why we're proposing something what we're proposing is aluminum, and it's modern and of its day, of its time, because we're building a building in 2024, not in 1860. And so at the time, those railings are actually cast iron, which is different than wrought iron. It's just a different way of doing it, different technology. They came up with cast iron because it was actually stronger than the old wrought iron. And wrought iron is when you hammer something out and you're making shapes with it that way. Cast is cast into molds. and make decorative elements. So you can just think about that in terms of the process, makes it automatically look different and gives you a different expression of architectural detail and style. So fast forward to today, what we're proposing is an aluminum sheet screen. It's got some thickness to it. I brought a sample here. Now we use water jet technology to cut into these screens, and we can cut any kind of decorative elements out of them. And so in this case, we wanted to pick up on the magnolia flower. So here's a blow up. You would ask us to see what that railing looks like close up. So up there in the top right, that is actually the screen. And it's made by making a series of holes in this aluminum sheet, some bigger, some smaller. That allows you to have privacy on the terrace, the same way that the old iron rails did, but still allows the air to come through, so you get the breezes and it's not stifling and like a wall. In my mind, it's simply a modern technology used to create a decorative art that is of the same general idea of those cast iron railings from before. So that's what we're trying to pick up on. And because it's aluminum, it's actually, again, it's an improvement of technology rather than using cast iron, which rusts and has to be painted all the time. The aluminum doesn't. It has a much better lifespan. And if you go that next one, yeah, there's a close-up of the material. You can see the circles in size and how you can make a pattern with that, which is really just about pixelation of an image. And then this is standing back, looking at it. That on the picture on the left is a screen in that gold color that's actually made out of the same screen that we're talking about. The picture on the right is just a picture looking up through some trees. And that was the idea behind the creation of this material, is picking up the dappled light that comes through naturally when you're underneath the tree canopy. It makes, using that same kind of idea, creates this screen.
And to be clear, this isn't something you're proposing, you're just saying as an example with the trees and the canopy, right?
Well, it is what we're proposing for the railings.
But I mean, like this exact image, you're saying, hey, look what you can do, we're gonna do something similar.
Right. Yeah, that image is not from our building.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right. Yeah. We are using it, if you go to that last one, this in the courtyard here. So in the foreground is the railing and it's blurred out, but that would be where that is. But if you look across the courtyard, there's a stair tower there too. And we were going to use the same material to skin the stair tower because that's the end of the hallway for the kind of the public access to the units. And in order to let light in there, we want to do it in glass, but yet put this screen around it so you get some dappled light in the hallways and make a nice sort of light texture.
Is it this same treatment that you're proposing at some of these balconies where it looks like it goes to kind of a sunroom to the side?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go back to the renderings, yeah, that one, but
that was a good one.
Go to keep going. The main big one. It's one, there you go.
Yeah.
So the railing is there to the left. As we go into that room on the right, that is actually the living room. And just the way the room lays out, we really need that outside wall to be the TV wall. And so, normally you'd expect a big window in the middle of the outside of the living room. We get all of our light through this glass door that opens up onto the terrace. But in order for that wall not to be blank on the outside, because you don't want it, it would look bad on the building to have a big blank wall there. So we do it in glass and we continue the screen over as if it's just more of the porch now screened in. And we can put glass behind it around the TV. You won't know when you're on the street, what part is the TV and what's not, because that's the solid part. But from inside, you'll get that dappled light all around on the wall.
So is that mirror glass then behind this screening?
No, regular glass with the screen in front of it. It's a way of kind of blending two things together that are for two different purposes with a same material and a same idea, to where it keeps the building a little bit simpler on the outside and more cohesive.
Okay. All right. Anything more you want to touch on?
That's
Any-
all I need to say, unless you have questions.
Yeah, questions directly for the applicant? And we'll have more chances to talk, so
Okay,
if you want to have a seat, it sounded like there's someone else in the audience that wanted to come up and speak.
sure. And by the way, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Tyler Stevens from Courthouse Architecture.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, if you want to speak, come on up. Please, to the podium, state your name, and then talk away.
You'll have to forgive me on two things. I'm not a public speaker, and I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so forgive me for that. My name is Robert Wilson. I'm a lifelong resident of Oxford, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to address this commission. I know a lot of thoughtfulness and effort goes into your work, and it's very much appreciated. About 40 years ago, I purchased the property where Nukes is and established a one-man furniture making shop, making handmade furniture one piece at a time for the public. The business remained very small, and about 20 years later, I gathered all my tools and moved to a little small shop on my farm just east of town. But I continued to hold on to the property with the earnest hope that when I reached a certain age, I could find a buyer of the property who has the wherewithal to build something very nice on it that would benefit everyone, either directly or indirectly, and I would, in turn, maybe have a little something to retire on. That has been my true hope all these years, and the reason I have held on to the property. So I want to say that I don't mean in any way to unnecessarily hinder these folks from being able to build their building. It seems like a very nice project. I do, however, have a question regarding our shared property line at the back of both lots. In other words, the back of Nuke's lot and the back of their lot. If I understand correctly, they originally proposed to build to their back property line. But since their design has windows on the back of their building, they were required by the fire department to move their building a few feet off the back property line in order to allow egress in the event of a fire, which is certainly understandable. So the fact that their back wall contains windows is the reason for requiring them to move off the property line. Is that correct? Or maybe that's not a question for you guys. It may be for the planning commission, but I kind of wanted to you know where.
Planning question.
Yeah, it's
Commission question.
planning and a building code
Really a
issue.
planning commission question.
Okay.
And a city questions, more, your property line, more of a legal question. You know, if you have it surveyed, I'm sure these good people are not encroaching upon your line, I wouldn't think, but as far as your question, that is, commission question, another commission's question.
Okay, and that meeting will be next.
I defer to the city on that.
Yeah, they're still in site plan review. I'm not sure if they're on the agenda. Are you on the agenda for January?
If you're still in review, you'll be February.
Yeah, it'll probably be the February commission meeting.
Okay.
But that's just,
They'll be,
let me grab this so
they'll be
we can
seeking
hear.
approval at that meeting for the.
Yes, sir, it'll be just like this where there's a public hearing. And I do know that they're still working with the fire department on where exactly the building is gonna sit finally on the lot, the fire. Do you want the map?
Yeah, and if I may, just to kind of explain, so Historic Commission, we're reviewing aesthetics and appropriateness of this building fitting within the historic context of our square, and that's kind of really where our charge stops. These questions are really planning commission and building department, so that you're really getting into permitting and code compliance. Tyler can probably speak some to it. So I think you definitely have other avenues to discuss those. It really isn't,
I understand.
yeah, much for us. We would.
Is the concern that you want it set further off the property line, or?
Do you want me to continue with the concern?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. So my question is this: if owner of let's go back. If I understand correctly, they originally proposed to build to their back property line, but then the fire department, I believe, required them to move back from the property line. So you're not sure if that's the reason. Is that the reason you?
Well, it's not, that's a building code question. If you want to have a window in a wall, then you can't be on a property line, you have to be at least 5 feet away.
Yeah.
We chose to move it a little bit further.
Okay. So my question is this, if owner of property B, let's call that the nuke side, my side, at some point proposes an equally nice building of the same elevation height as that of what you're proposing, but we design it in such a way that its back opposing wall is without windows, which is typical with the back of a lot of commercial buildings. Would we then be allowed to build right to the property line, as I believe the rules allow? And if not, what would be the reason? That's the planning commission question, I guess.
Well, there's a little, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's a little bit of historic question in there as well. So I think you're getting into building code and what you're allowed to do and not to do, and I think I'll stop from jumping into that. Though I could, I think Tyler probably could as well. But there's a little historic question there too. Would Historic Commission approve a blank wall 3 stories tall on your property line?
I don't imagine that it would be without windows.
Right.
It's just, I just wondered about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. It's one that you probably maybe could have conversations outside of this, these hearings. I don't know if we want
And so if it were with windows,
you would have to set back
the
appropriately.
same amount, they are no more than what they're requiring to be set back.
Depending on how much windows you have, and it's a little more complicated. Anything with building code is complicated, but yeah.
It's hard to say without a design.
That's right.
Everything can change depending on the size of the windows you would be proposing on your building and that kind of thing. But you would just work through that with the building department and with the.
Yeah, I just thought I should bring it up before they get a building built, that we sort of work together on
Sure.
with the city as to how they're going to require me to manage my setback. Is kind of where I was coming from. So I'll discuss this more with them.
Yeah, it sounds like that's some conversations directly with them maybe, and then discussions. I would recommend sitting down with staff outside of the commission hearing and just sort of having conversations. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the audience want to speak? Seems like no, so questions, comments among the commission?
I do. The street for Tyler Avenue. There's been a question presented to me about the parking at the top next to the South Lamar. There's some parking places there that are used by the restaurants on either side of that street. Do you foresee any problem with those parking places?
You go right for the important questions. So that's been a big point of discussion with the fire department. The fire department does not like those parking spaces one bit, and it does truncate the street down to where it doesn't meet fire code. But at some point they were voted to put in there, so they're there. That's up to the city if you guys want to take those spaces away or not. It has nothing to do with our property really, because the spaces, well, I was going to say the spaces end before our property starts, but that's not true. There are a few spaces that go right in front of the Quonset hut that's there, down to an electric box, and there's another big issue. There's currently an electric transformer that is out. It looked like it's in the street to me, but it's right out the line. And when we widen the street, that electric transformer is going to be out in the street. And that's the way everybody's agreed to do it. And it's just going to have a curb around it and some bollards. But the point is, there are a lot of issues with regard to the fact that the streets are narrow, always have been. And now, as buildings are built, ours is just one of an example of many that could come. If the fire department wants them all widened, then you're going to run into issues like parking and transformers, and they're even there's a fire hydrant that's gonna be out in the middle of the street too. So,
Oh, but you know, the delivery trucks that park on Tyler at the top of Tyler next to South Lamar, you're probably not gonna be coming from that direction anyway, right?
I wouldn't think so, but I have been told from other people here that that is the main direction because that's what's gonna lead to the square. In my opinion, you're coming that way when you're on foot. I think it's gonna be a lot of pedestrian traffic going that way. By car, I don't know why you would wanna turn up Lamar and sit in traffic, you know, on a busy weekend trying to get to, and that's one reason why we moved, I guess you probably didn't see our original plan, but we moved the entrance to our garage around to 14th Street. We originally had it on Tyler. We pulled it around the corner so that you could come up 14th instead for that reason.
Yeah. Well, they were just concerned about their deliveries for food.
Well, I mean, if they deliver from the middle of the street right now, there's nothing that will preclude them from doing that in the future.
Tyler's a tiny little street, so
Yeah.
good luck with that.
Well, one of the things that I don't know if you, man, I hate to open a can of worms, but in order to widen it, we have to deal with the sidewalk. And one of the things that we have proposed, which I think the city is in favor of, is eliminating the sidewalks. It's, in my opinion, that's a pedestrian street. It's more like an alley, really. But every time I've been here, I have walked up and down the middle of the street. I've seen many other people walking up and down the middle of the street. Nobody walks on the sidewalks anyway. If we want the wider streets for the fire department, we should just eliminate the sidewalks and just make it the whole thing's a sidewalk and cars can drive over it.
Or go to curbless sidewalks potentially.
Yes.
Are you triggering the ladder truck 26-foot requirement on
Yes.
this? You are. That's tough.
Yeah.
Those are the site plan review issues I was referring to.
Pray tell, what does that mean? Decipher that for the rest.
Yeah, sure. So, why don't you go ahead?
Oh,
Please.
Well, according to the fire code, a building has to have access to it for a fire truck of 20 feet wide. And your curbs are basically 20 feet curb to curb. It's pretty much the standard street around downtown area. Once your building is more than 30 feet tall, you have to go to 26 feet wide because it's proposed that you'd have a ladder truck. And 26 feet allows the ladder truck to park up against the curb and another truck can get by it on the other side while they're fighting the fire. So 26 feet is wider than any of the other streets down there. So that's what we have to change Tyler into a 26-foot wide street. The irony of this is the fire code also says very clearly, because I was asking why we've never run into this in any other town. The fire code also says that the fire department has the ability to overrule these whenever they want. So that's another aspect of it in terms of the town. But I think the direction is that we are going 26 feet wide for at least our block.
Okay, so at one time we approved, and we are getting far afield, but I would like to know the answer to this. We approved, when I say we, our board of aldermen approved 26 feet as far as these streets. Is that right? We got 20-foot streets? Did I understand that
I
correctly?
think the streets predate the fire code.
Yeah, it's a
they do.
fire code issue, and so you've got William, the fire department, saying, my job is to enforce the code. The code has been adopted by the city. So to answer your question, yes, the city has adopted the fire code. The fire code says you've got to have 26 foot for the ladder truck and its outriggers. So William is saying, my hands are tied, I have to enforce it to be 26 feet.
Right.
Now, he does have the leeway, the fire department, to make the call if they want to, or the city potentially to make some calls there. But
I didn't mean to digress. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But
I was
any
curious.
That's the
changes
answer.
to parking and all of that will go, that would be heard at the board of aldermen. I mean, that's not,
Yes.
that doesn't rest with
If-
staff.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
And if the fire department really
Fair
wants
point.
to enforce this, then they probably will suggest that those parking spaces be removed. Because they do really truncate the street.
All right. The only comment I had, I think it looks good. I said it before that I thought it looked good. The only comment I had is on your residential entries. and this is not anything that would ever make its way into a motion, but I do feel like the residential entries, you know, the question is, where's the front door to this building? Now, you do have the courtyard, which feels like a front door, but the residential entries to me feel sort of just like, that's another storefront. You know, like, how is the Uber or the pizza delivery folks scenario gonna know kind of where's the door, where's the residential entry feel to it? And that's the one criticism I think that a lot of architects and planning departments and planners have of urban buildings, is sometimes it feels like the entry is just kind of a door off to the side that if you didn't know it was the entry, then you wouldn't know where the front door is.
We did change the rendering because we added in our details of the fountain and all of that at that entry. And a lot of that was to, yes, you're right, it is another storefront, but inside that storefront are the little lobbies where basically the two entries for the buildings. And so you would see lobby furniture and painting on the wall and that kind of thing, and they're flanked around that courtyard that has the little fountain going, nice decorative gate. All of that is meant to invoke entry of the building, as opposed to yet another store.
Yeah. Well, that would be my one encouragement, is as you develop the design further, if there's one way, and this is a criticism I have of my own buildings, you know, is like buildings are sometimes designed with not feeling like there's the front doors. Just if that could sort of be played up a little more, if the building has a front, you know.
No, I would agree with that as a comment. It's an interesting critique on this that I hadn't really thought about, because most of our buildings have a very obvious front sometimes, and this one doesn't as much. So
I'm supportive of it personally. I think it looks good. Are there other comments or questions?
Is there a sample of that screen aluminum?
Okay, do you by chance have a picture of our house that you pull up?
Sure. I can just pull up the street view.
Yeah, street
I was
view.
thinking
I've been
screen.
looking at it too.
That is metal, yeah.
Substantial.
And I like the magnolia design. It's really hard to tell if it's going to show up as a magnolia flower once you get it up there. But even if it's muted and a little bit abstract, I don't think it would take away from the look of it.
yeah, sometimes it's good to put an Easter egg in somewhere.
So will you actually achieve the I'm sorry. Will you actually achieve the magnolia patterning by pixelation, or is it going to be more?
Well, I have two samples here. There's also
Right, a more direct.
So we prefer the pixelation method, but simply because, to me, I mean, we could do it this way, where you actually carve in a flower, right? But to me, this starts to look like a cheap version of the cast iron, you know, because those are decorative flowers and vines, and this, it's sort of like, well, we just did it with less detail. Whereas when you do it the pixelated, then it becomes its own thing. It's become some new artistic statement that is a little bit beyond just the obvious. So I think that's why we prefer that other. We'll have a sample made up when we get down to it. They'll make us a good size sample with the flower in it so that we can take it out. And we do this, we have a great big terrace in front of our office. We take all of our samples out there, we stick them on the terrace, go out in the street. What does it look like from the street, 30 feet away? So we will do that.
Did you find anything in the historic area that's got this type of screening?
Well, not a screen like that, no.
The other type of screening?
Well, that picture, the Duval, I wish it's funny, I took those pictures, but...
It's right there. I can just about see it.
Yeah, you can see it right there. I can see it.
That's the closest example.
Yeah, that is a screen. It's just made in a different way, but it's a pretty solid screen too. I mean, there's not a lot of light going through there. I took a picture of the one here in front of the courthouse because the railing here is a little bit like that, but it's much more open, has more void to it. That I was quite solid.
All right, so we have a demolition and then an approval of new construction. If the commission will bear with me, just so that we're grounded in, is there any more discussion, any more presentation? No, okay. Just so we're grounded in what we are supposed to be doing, I'm gonna read the 4 requirements for demolition, And if there's silence after each one, then we're gonna assume everybody feels good about the demolition, and then we will hear a motion. So the 4 points that we're supposed to hit on, we are to consider the individual architectural, cultural, and/or historical significance of the existing resource. Does anybody have concerns about its historical, cultural, architectural, or individual significance? No. We are to consider the importance or contribution of the resource to the architectural character of the district. Any concerns along those lines? No. We are to consider the importance or contribution of the resource to the neighboring property values. Okay, and we are to consider the difficulty or impossibility of reproducing such a resource, should someone want to, because of its texture, design, material, or detail. All right, hearing no concerns about that, I do have one quick question. Why would the Quonset hut not show up on the survey at all?
I called MDH about it when we first started talking about this property with Savoy. We had a survey from the previous surveys from the early 2000s. I think Judith just missed it. It was listed as non-contributing at that time. It is obviously older now, but when I talked to MDH about it, they seemed to feel that it was outside the period of significance for the Courthouse Square district. It's not of the era that many of the contributing buildings in the district are. And so they seem to agree that it would continue to be non-contributing if Judith had surveyed it.
But still, even if it was determined as outside of the area, it should have shown up as non-contributing.
Yes,
they just missed it.
Yeah, I believe she just missed it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, is there a motion for the demolition?
I move that we demolish the Quonset hut and the little yellow building.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, demolition is approved. So now, I'm not gonna take us through every single point. I'm just gonna hit the headings again so that we're grounded. We are to consider it under the heading of new construction. There are other headings that we're supposed to be looking at this under, but I'm gonna just go with what Kate has listed out here. Setback, lot coverage, orientation, scale, proportion, rhythm, massing, and height. And then we are to consider materials and color. And I do want to say we don't review paint colors and stuff like that when someone's talking about painting and existing. But on an application for new construction, colors do matter. We do review that. And then roof shape, details, ornamentation. So those are our sort of headings of what we're supposed to be reviewing this as. It seems like there was not a lot of pushback on any of those points. So we will hear a motion if there is one.
I move we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Do we need to put in the?
Oh, that's,
But yeah,
Oh, yeah, the
the
window.
recommendation about the windows.
Yeah.
I
So-
thought that was a condition precedent. Oh, no, it wasn't an add-on. Yeah, with that condition, I move we approve.
Second.
all in favor? Oh. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We can have
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah, sure. Come on up to the microphone if you would, please.
Yeah. I heard you mention, if there would be any effect to the property value of neighbors. And what I was talking about a minute ago with the situation where they're building up, pretty close to the back property line. If it affects what we can do on our side of the property line, that would affect the value of our property. So that's a concern I have. In other words, if they're going to build now with windows on the back of their property, of their building, then that would affect, it might affect what we could do on our side of the line.
I guess I would press.
So I guess what my point is if there's something we need to do now about that, maybe we should address it.
Sure, Hollis, in just a second. I guess I would press upon you. Could you, in the terms of a historical commission, express what the concern is of how this would negatively affect your property value?
Well, in that I might be required to have a further setback than would normally be the case. I mean, I guess the rules are the rules. With the CBD, I think you can build 2 property line. And a minute ago, I think I heard you have some reservation about what we could do as far as building two property line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's a sort of future hypothetical, I think, that we wouldn't necessarily get into. I mean, I think what our charge is to affect the properties in a positive or negative way as they are today and as a historical resource. I don't know that we could really, well, I guess I would open it up to the commission if there's concern on that future hypothetical, but Hollis, if.
Yeah, I can weigh in on that if you like.
Sure.
At least how I see it, I think for today's meeting, I think, and we've met, Mr. Wilson has met with our team, and we'll meet again with the building department. We'll have fire there. We'll go through, as this goes through site plan for the planning commission, and lay out all of those things. And you'll want to, I assume you'll want to come back and present this particular worry to the planning commission. In my mind, that's where it would, the weight, where your concerns would be giving full weight. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that I would be able to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we want to meet, after hearing you, we'll want to meet with you prior to get you as comfortable. We don't want to do, we want you to be heard and not necessarily do anything that might impact the future of your property.
And to keep this grounded in historic commission and what we're supposed to be looking at, the effect that this might have on your property is your contemplation of future construction. And so that's not really, I think, in our purview to sort of think about the future potential value of your property until you show us a proposal, And so does this negatively affect your property as a historic resource to us today? I don't think it does. Could it in the future? We would have to, I think, address that when it came before us.
Robert, your rights as to the issues that you raised are preserved.
Yeah.
To the planning commission level, as Hollis just mentioned. As I hear it, that's your primary concern about the issues you raised today, are primarily planning commission issues. So I think that's where your remedy is. Your rights are preserved, but that's where your remedy is, not here.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. And they're legitimate. I don't mean to say that they're illegitimate, just a different commission. All right, so we had a motion and a motion to approve with condition. We have a second. Hearing no more discussion. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. All right, we'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.